The Daily Mail is really mad at Prince Harry. They're calling him names like sneaky, dangerous, and a spoiled brat. Sarah Louise Robertson wrote an article in the Daily Mail, which is a huge newspaper, saying that Harry's visit to Ukraine was a big problem. She used strong words that people don't usually use when talking about the royal family. She didn't say it was just a mistake. She said it was dangerous. This word choice is important and makes us think. Robertson thinks Harry is dangerous because he's still a part of the British royal family. He still has his fancy title and could even become king one day. This means that when he talks, people all over the world listen, even though he's not an official representative of the country anymore. He wasn't elected, he doesn't answer to the government, and he doesn't have a job helping with foreign countries. But when he spoke in Ukraine and told America to keep its promises, everyone listened as if a British prince was speaking, not just a regular person. His name and title make his words powerful, even if he doesn't officially represent anyone. The danger Robertson sees is like a weak link in a chain. When someone who used to be a big part of the royal family says things about other countries from a war zone without permission, it makes the whole family and country vulnerable. The royal family and the government can't control what Harry says, but what he says can hurt Britain's interests and safety. That's why she used the word dangerous. Harry acts without asking the UK government, without permission from the palace, and without anyone checking what he's doing, which is normally required for official diplomatic talks. It's like an unlicensed driver behind the wheel of a very important car. The car is powerful, but no one is responsible for how it's driven. This makes things risky, which Robertson calls dangerous. Some people might think calling it a national security issue is too much, but Robertson's reasons aren't over the top. Harry has visited war zones like Ukraine 3 times, and other risky places too. This puts him in situations where he could be a target. He doesn't have the special security that other royals get when they go to dangerous places, and that's a big problem. It means King Charles might have to go clean up Harry's messes, especially with people like Donald Trump. Robertson says Harry goes to these places without permission, without government coordination, without the protection arrangements that his status as a visible British royal makes necessary. There's a real risk of him being kidnapped or killed in conflict zones, and right now, only his own team is managing that risk, with no one else checking on them. Trump's reaction to Harry's comments about Ukraine shows how messy it can get. He basically brushed Harry off, saying he doesn't speak for the UK, and that he, Trump, speaks for the UK more than Harry. This was a clear message to everyone. It's not clear if King Charles was able to fix the diplomatic problems Harry created with his speech. Trump and Charles usually get along well. Trump has always liked William and the working royals, and his dismissal of Harry just proves that. Charles and Trump had a private meeting, so they probably talked about whatever needed to be sorted out. Harry's speech probably didn't ruin their relationship forever, but it definitely made things harder for Charles, who had to deal with the fallout. The author also talks about how Harry's visit to Ukraine was timed to cause problems. He went there right after Australia and before Charles landed in Washington. He was probably tired from all the travel, but he still went. Robertson thinks he did this on purpose. He wanted to get to Ukraine, make his big statements, and get headlines before Charles arrived in Washington. The trip to Australia hadn't gone well, so he needed something new to get attention. Ukraine gave him new videos and a global stage. It made him seem important and like a war hero, which the Australia trip didn't do. And this all happened at a very sensitive time for Charles diplomatically. Some people wonder if this was a planned move or just a lucky coincidence, but the author thinks Harry is sneaky and sly. The Royal News Network also thinks Harry is sly. They say he's too dim to know what he's doing, yet doing it consistently in ways that serve specific interests. This means he might not be super smart, but he somehow always manages to do things that help himself. For example, the timing of his Ukraine visit, his declaration that he'll always be part of the royal family, and how he always mentions his mother Diana when talking about landmines. These things don't seem like random actions from someone without a plan. They seem like actions from someone who knows how to get attention and stay connected to the royal family for his own business. There's another potential problem brewing with Harry's involvement in African parks. He has a big role in this conservation group, which has been accused of really bad things in the areas where it works, like human trafficking and rape by its guards. If Harry goes on an Africa tour, people will ask tough questions about African parks and what he knows about these accusations. Sarah Louise Robertson thinks Harry is not only trying to steal his father's thunder, but also trying to destroy Charles and the royal family. She believes he wants to completely ruin the institution, not just compete with it. It will be hard for Harry's team to control the story and avoid these questions. Harry saying he will always be part of the royal family, and timing his Ukraine visit to cause problems is a direct challenge to the agreement he made with the family at Sandringham. Tom Sykes said it well. Harry is basically daring his father to take away his titles. This dare is public and clear. So far, the royal family has only responded by not inviting him to Sandringham, which is a private message, not a formal public statement. Donald Trump, who doesn't like Harry, is on Team Wales, meaning he likes the King and William. The big question is whether Charles will formally announce that Harry's actions don't represent the crown. This could be done through an official order or by removing Harry and Meghan from the royal family's website. Robertson's use of the word dangerous is basically asking for this kind of clarity. Robertson's final message to Harry is, "You threw it away. You didn't give up your royal duty. You threw it away." This describes the Sandringham meeting where the Queen gave Harry a choice, and he chose to leave and pursue his commercial ventures in California. He can't have it both ways. 6 years ago, Harry left the royal family, and his grandmother, the Queen, told him he couldn't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He couldn't do some royal duties and some private work. But now he's trying to do exactly that. All of his choices since his interview with Oprah, his Netflix show, his book, Spare, his Australia tour, and his speech in Ukraine are all part of the same decision he made in January 2020. Saying he's still a working royal at a security forum in Ukraine doesn't change the fact that he chose to leave. It just makes the difference between what he says and what's real even clearer. Robertson has written about this in the Daily Mail. Trump has dismissed him from the Oval Office. He wasn't invited to Sandringham. Polls show that many people disapprove of him. And his statement, "I will always be part of the royal family. I am doing the very thing I was born to do," is now part of the public record, along with all the evidence that proves it wrong. The author says that Harry's actions since January 2020 have built a strong case for the royal family to take official action. Robertson believes the word dangerous is appropriate, and the institution will eventually have to decide if it's better to just deal with Harry's actions or to make things clear, like the Queen tried to do, especially since Harry has now openly gone against that. Not inviting him to Sandringham is a start, but Robertson and public opinion are asking for more. Robertson is careful with her words, saying Harry is sneaky and sly rather than just stupid. The Royal News Network's analysis of an interview Harry did shows he was genuinely surprised by a question he hadn't prepared for. This suggests he had specific things he wanted to say but wasn't ready for unexpected challenges. So both stupidity, meaning not thinking through all the consequences, and calculation, meaning having a broad strategy, exist in Harry. He understands the general plan, make statements, get headlines, claim royal status, and disrupt the institution at important times. But he doesn't always understand how his actions will affect things later on, especially with important people like Trump, or how they might complicate Charles's plans. He understands the move, but not the whole board, like in a game of chess. Robertson calls this a failure to engage brain, meaning he doesn't think about the long-term effects of his actions in different situations. He saw the Ukraine event as a way to feel important and connect with his mother's legacy, but he didn't imagine Trump brushing him off like a fly just 2 days before the king arrived. Lee Cohen's words are quoted. Harry talks about his service, yet walked away from duty, trashed the institution that gives him relevance in public, and now repurposes its prestige for personal crusades. This is a very smart summary of Harry's actions since leaving. Cohen thinks it's dangerous because it hurts British interests and national security. Why? Because Harry, a prominent member of the royal family, has broken his agreement with the Queen about not being a frontline royal. The Queen said he couldn't be half in and half out, but he's now involved in global politics and uses the royal family's prestige for his own personal projects. The global attention his Ukraine speech received is because of his connection to the royal family, a connection he officially gave up in January 2020. He can't separate the fame from the institution that gives it to him and only claim the fame. The Queen understood this, and Robertson has understood it for years. Harry's statement from Ukraine shows he still doesn't get it. The way Harry's visit was received in Ukraine adds another layer of complexity. Some Ukrainian commentators and viewers weren't happy. They felt that their country's suffering and the war were being used by Harry for attention and photo opportunities. This is similar to criticism he received for another event, but now applied to a war zone. The idea is that the real suffering of people fighting a war isn't helped by a former British royal walking through a cleared minefield and talking about his mother's visit to Angola decades ago. Even if his intentions are good, it looks like he's just creating content for his own business, which needs constant visibility. Robertson also says that Harry puts William and Charles in danger, just like Prince Andrew did, by being vulnerable to the wrong people. This is about institutional security. When someone with Harry's royal profile and title operates in war zones without government supervision, without coordinating with security services, and without the special protection that working royals get, he creates a weakness that goes beyond his own safety. People who want to hurt the British government or royal family now have an easy target that the institution can't protect or control. This is the specific institutional security argument Robertson makes with the word dangerous, and it's not an exaggeration. The withdrawal of the Sandringham invitation, which has been reported, is the first official sign from the institution that Harry's actions in Australia and Ukraine have gone too far. It's the smallest possible response, refusing to create the grandchild photo that Harry's commercial ventures seem to need. But it is a response. Robertson and the Daily Mail, who have been watching Harry for years, are asking for more, and so are the public polls. Harry himself, with his "I will always be part of the royal family" statement, has given them the strongest possible reason to do more. Lady Colin Campbell suggests an ordering council as the right tool. This is an administrative clarification that would remove the princely style and royal highness titles from people who aren't working within the royal family's rules. This is what Robertson's dangerous argument points towards, not as a punishment, but for clarity. It's the clarity the Queen tried to establish in January 2020, and which Harry's ITV interview in Ukraine has now made necessary in a formal, institutional way, rather than as a private agreement that one side has broken. Robertson ended with a message to Harry. If he wants to come back, he needs to apologize to everyone, admit his mistakes, and say he can't do this anymore. If he's sincere, then they might consider it. This is the path available to Harry, but it's not the one he's taking with his "I will always be part of the royal family" declaration from Ukraine. The path involves genuine regret and a real change in behavior. The response from the studio was, "Pigs might fly," meaning it's highly unlikely. The king is in Washington doing his job. Robertson has given her opinion. The Daily Mail has called Harry dangerous. Trump has dismissed him. He wasn't invited to Sandringham. The public record keeps growing, and Harry is already looking for the next place to speak and declare that he's still doing what he was born to do. The institution is watching, the public record is patient, and the danger, as Robertson has shown, is real. The author mentions Prince Andrew as an example because he shows what happens when an uncontrolled member of the royal family becomes a problem. Andrew's connections to Jeffrey Epstein and how that became an international scandal proved how a private person's actions, even if not official duties and without supervision, can cause damage that the institution can't stop once it starts. The Andrew situation eventually led to a formal response from the institution. He lost his Royal Highness title, was removed from official duties, and his public royal role ended. It was a difficult and slow process, but it eventually happened. The way it was done was through the sovereign's power to decide who can use royal titles, which Lady Colin Campbell says is also available for Harry's situation. Harry's situation is different from Andrew's in some ways, which Robertson acknowledges. Andrew's actions were personal and legal, involving Epstein, a lawsuit, and a disastrous BBC interview. Harry's actions are more political and institutional, claiming to be a working royal without authorization, making unauthorized statements about global politics, and using his royal connection for money. The damage is different. It's more spread out, ongoing, and less specific legally. But Robertson's dangerous argument is that this ongoing, widespread damage has reached a point where it needs a formal institutional response, just like Andrew's situation eventually received. The author points out the difference between the damage reaching a critical point and the institution actually recognizing that it has reached that point. The withdrawal of the Sandringham invitation shows that the institution has recognized the Australia tour as a turning point, the straw that broke the camel's back. Harry's "I will always be part of the royal family" declaration in his Ukraine interview represents another critical point. The question is whether the institution will respond formally or continue to just absorb the hits and send private signals. Robertson is useful because she asks the public questions that the royal family would prefer not to answer publicly. At what point does absorption become complicity? And at what point does the institution's failure to formally respond to the conduct become an implicit endorsement of it? The royal website still lists Harry and Meghan. Their titles remain. Harry's claim of being a permanent working royal in the Ukraine interview has only been met with the cancellation of a private social invitation, not a formal institutional statement. The gap between Harry's actions and the institution's response is Robertson's main point, and it's a topic that the growing public record has been building towards since he left. The permanent record now includes his ITV interview declaration, Trump's dismissal, the Sandringham withdrawal, Robertson's assessment, the Daily Mail's dangerous description, and everything that came before it. The Australia tour, the polls, the photographs, the financial information, the narcissism disclosures, lawsuits, messages, descriptions of children's titles, the clothing listings, the retreat, the empty barricades. All of this is in the public record. All of this information is available, and the institution with a king working in Washington, a future king on a magazine cover, and a former queen whose warnings are proven right every week, is deciding how to respond. Robertson uses the word dangerous. The permanent record supports this description, and the institution's response will also become part of that permanent record.